your Comedy Minute. I'm Scotty T. I have an absolute a comedy legend with me today. Carole Montgomery's here. Carole, thank you so much for taking the time.
Not a problem. How are you, Scott?
I feel like a woodpecker in a lumber yard. I'm a little giddy. I'm a little giddy. You make me nervous.
Well, I will try.
I'm scared of you, Carole. I'm scared of you. I watched an interview before this. I try and do a lot of preparation. And you did a podcast with a girl and you said it outright, so I know I'm right. You said they're scared of me.
Yes, yes. Most people are afraid of me.
It's okay. I'm planning on trying to tough it out with you.
I
Let's.
won't hurt you. I won't hurt you too much,
Oh,
Scott.
I'm not worried about it. I can hold my own. I fought bigger girls to get to the fight. All right, let's start. You're in New York,
Yes, I am.
born and raised in New York.
Yeah, I grew up in Brooklyn and
Okay.
moved to New York when I was, I think, I want to say 21 or 22.
Okay.
Stayed there and then
Okay.
moved to LA when I was in my late 20s. Moved to
Right.
Vegas when I was in my 40s and then came home in my 50s and 60s. So I'm
Well,
back home.
and I watched a lot of your stuff. I'm following you on Instagram and everywhere you're at. And you posted a video of the Mets, so I think you're a Mets fan.
Yes, I sadly,
Congratulations on a
yes.
great season.
Oh, it was a great season. It was
I know I
absolutely,
couldn't be happier for you.
yeah, it was a great season. But in the end, the Dodgers, look, we
Yeah.
have a lot of friends who are Dodgers fans, and they were the better team.
Well, but I have to laugh. The video that you showed, or the video I saw, you were more concerned about the line at the food court.
Well, okay, so we have never we've never my I we decided to go and spend the money to go to a playoff game because we had never been to one.
Right.
So and it was packed and we had standing room only. We were standing in a with a
Okay.
group of people. But because it was such an exciting game, and it really was an exciting game, the fact that there was no line at the food, I was like, there's usually a line at Shake Shack, takes an hour. And I was like, I'm not even hungry. I should go to Shake Shack and just get something because
Yeah,
there's
I
no
thought
line. I mean, we were both shocked. We were like, what? There's nobody for the first 5 innings, nobody left their spot. Nobody left their seat. Nobody left their spot. It was such an exciting game.
I'm an Orioles fan, and I was fortunate enough to go to an Orioles and Yankees playoffs game
Oh,
in
those are the best.
Baltimore. When
Yeah.
the kid reached out and grabbed that ball, I was at that game.
Oh, wow.
All right, let's move on. Going back to the beginning, Carole. When
Yes.
you started doing comedy, was there a catalyst? Was there something that said, Carole, start doing comedy?
Um, uh, yes and no. I grew up, my dad was a public school, high school teacher, so he had the summers off. And
Right,
so for the first probably the first 8 years of my life, every summer my father was a bartender at the Catskill Mountains.
right. And I've got a lot,
So
I got a lot, not to interrupt you, but I got a lot of stuff about that because, or if you want to elaborate on that, your dad bartending up there.
yeah, I mean, he was a bartender and I used to sit with him while he'd be setting up the bar and Tony Fields would walk in or
Right,
Rodney Dangerfield, who was Jack Roy at the time. He wasn't
right,
even Rodney Dangerfield then. So I was surrounded by comedians at a very young age, and my father was very funny.
right.
And yeah, years later, when I was in comedy a couple of years, I said to my father, "It's your fault that I became a comedian because I mean that's all I've ever known is
Yeah.
sitting. I feel very comfortable in a bar, and not for the drinking part. I just
Hey,
feel
Carole, so
comfortable.
do I. I feel real
Yeah.
comfortable in a
Yeah, but
bar.
you're an alcoholic. That's
Yeah, my
different.
liver's twitching right now, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, but I
Hang on,
just
let
really
me
I
get a
love
little
being
sip of my coffee here.
yeah, I love being in a bar, and that has to do with my childhood. So yeah. So that's how I started, and then I was doing summer stock, working behind the scenes like building sets and everything, and the crew and we'd just sit around and have a couple of drinks and talk and laugh, and they were like, you should be a comedian. And at the time, I have to understand, I was 21 years old, so that's 1979. Nobody even knew what a comedian was. More, like now everybody and their mother is a comedian. But I sat around and my friend said to me, you should, and we were having, it was so funny because we were doing summer stock, So we were having a Christmas in July party, and they said you should do stand up at the party. It was only like a dozen people that were in the crew,
Right.
and my friend and I sat down, who I'm still friends with, by the way,
You can
and
mention.
he
Go ahead,
helped me
mention it.
write. His
Go
name's Ed
mention
Sherrier. He was a he's been a producer of NFL films for
it.
50
Oh
years.
wow.
I mean, so he's but he sat down with me and wrote me some jokes, and and I did it, and I was like, oh, this is fun. And then I started going to Pips in Brooklyn, and
Yeah.
that's how the career started in '79.
Yeah, I saw that in an interview. David Brenner and other people there at Pips started off at
Yep.
Pips.
Oh yeah, David Brenner, Joan Rivers used to
Joan
go there all
Rivers.
the time.
Yeah,
Dice Clay, Richie Jenny, a lot of people started at Pips.
yeah, Helene Witt was on the show, and so was Tom Padovano, and they wrote jokes for Joan Rivers.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
Right. Um, the reason I wanted to just touch on that with Dad and the bartending in New York, I was fortunate enough to meet Rodney Dangerfield myself.
yeah.
That was pretty wild.
Oh, okay. So I didn't even ever tell him this story, but so Catch a Rising Star, which is no longer there in New York City, they used to have a thing where if you answered the phones, um, that was that was a job I had. You'd answer the phones because back in those days, they call for reservations and everything. So
Right.
I used to work there on like, Saturday afternoons, and Rodney lived upstairs from Catch a Rising Star. So
Yeah.
many times he would just come down in his robe and his
Bathrobe.
slippers.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's how I
yeah,
met him. He had a
yeah,
bathrobe on with two blondes at Beverly
yeah,
Hilton.
yeah, yeah. He was a nice man. He was a very nice man.
He,
Flawed, but a very nice man.
yeah, he asked me if I had any weed.
Yeah, that
I'm
sounds
not
like
gonna
Rodney.
I'm not gonna tell any more of that story.
Okay.
You created funny women of a certain age, and I wanted to ask you first off, how did that come about? I mean, I know the answer, but I think for people to see, to hear your story on how that came about.
Well, I was doing a podcast with a bunch of other women comics, and we was just having we were just,
Right.
and people always go, what podcast? I said, you're asking me to remember something that happened like 10 years ago. Are you kidding me? But
It
I,
never
I
happened.
barely remember that I'm married and I have a child, So
I
we,
barely remember what I had for dinner last night.
exactly. So I basically, we were sitting around, and when I was leaving, I was getting on the train to go home. I called my husband to say I was coming home, and I said, I have this idea. I think a show with just older female comedians, and
Right.
in show business, you throw a lot of shit against the wall when you're creating
Sure.
projects. And this was the first and only time my husband went, "That's a really good idea."
Yeah.
And then it snowballed. It basically snowballed. We premiered in 2017 at the Cinder Block Comedy Festival, which was
Right.
a small festival that only ran a couple of years, and from there we got a residency at the Crane, which is no longer there. That we were
Yeah.
there for 6 years and on the Lower East Side, and at the Crane is where we did a showcase for all the different networks, and then we ended up having a bidding war, and we ended up going with Showtime.
Right. And there are three Showtime specials, and then COVID hit because there would have been more, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, but basically what happened is the first special, obviously, big hit. It was the top rated special of
Yeah.
Showtime. Uh,
Congratulations.
thank you. And then the second special, we filmed before COVID. It aired. Okay, so we were doing publicity for the second special. We were on the Today Show, and they had
Right.
pre-shot it because they always they were airing it on Friday, and they don't work on Fridays. They pre-tape it.
Okay.
So we had pre-taped it on Thursday. We There was nobody in the audience at that point because COVID had started to rear its ugly head,
Yeah.
and we only had like some guests and people. We taped it. It aired on Friday. The first segment, we did two segments, was preempted in New York City by Cuomo talking about what's going on, and he just
So,
keeps talking. I'm like, I'm on the Today Show. Get off the fucking TV. So,
screw your
and
COVID. I
yeah,
want
because
my spot.
yeah, and then we premiered that Saturday, and then Monday the world
Right.
shut down. I
Yeah.
literally Monday, on Monday afternoon, I started getting calls. I was booked. The show was booked. We were going to be on like a 2 week tour, and everything was gone. My calendar emptied. And then the third special,
Yeah, just if
COVID
I
was
can, real quick, Carol, you had Fran Drescher, Terry
Fran
Hatcher,
Drescher,
Terry Hatcher.
Fran Drescher and Lunel were on the first special.
Right.
Caroline Ray and uh, Tammy Pescatelli were on the third. For people who,
Yeah.
these are the well-known comics. Carol Leifer,
Right.
Terry Hatcher, and Marsha Warfield and
Yeah.
Wendy Liebman were on the third special. But what
Right.
happened with the third special was this. I always love telling the story because we were supposed to shoot in July, and there was a COVID scare, and we had to postpone. And we were literally there. This was like I had finally taken a breath and gone, I'm going to treat myself. I flew my husband and my son, and we got a great hotel room and with a suite, and this was going to be,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
my friends were coming in from Vegas, and I'm driving into the hotel, and I get the email that we have to postpone the show, and I was like, motherfucker. I was so distraught. And then my producing partner, Dave Goldberg, who produced all the three specials with me, he said, if we don't rebook this now, we're never going to do it. So he was the one that said, let's call, and we rebooked it, and we redid everything. We lost so much money on that because we were there, that we were ready to tape on Tuesday. We had to postpone on Sunday, so we
Move all the
lost
equipment and do everything. Yeah.
all the equipment.
Yeah. Yeah.
We lost so much money on that. Anyway,
I'm sorry about that.
yeah, it was horrible.
Right.
But we did shoot it, and we shot it in Irvine. And what had happened was, and this is a lot of some people know about this, some people don't know. So besides being a performer, besides being the creator, I'm also a producer on the show.
Right.
So I'm on my I'm I get the director comes up to me and goes, "There's a problem with the lighting." And I said, well, we have to keep it because the lighting of the show is the pink and gold. That's always been the colors of the show.
Right.
And she goes, it's not, it doesn't look right, because I forgot why she said that. And I said, okay. And she says, come out and come to the board, which was all the way in the back,
Right.
past the audiences. So I'm I'm fully made up,
Right.
but I'm in like my work clothes. And I go over and I'm looking at it, and she shows me what the problem is. And I said, I really don't like it, but if everyone was hawking me to change the color. So I said, okay, change it. And meanwhile, people who know me are seeing me and like waving to me. I'm like, I'm so out of my head because I'm trying to deal with
Right.
production.
Right.
I
Right.
go back into the room. I go, the show goes on. It's going really well. They introduce me. I go on stage, and I'm on stage killing it. I mean, I'm having such an amazing set. And I look to the right of me and I see my director, and she's waving at me like this. But I'm ignoring her because I'm like, what the? So finally, I just stop what I'm doing because it's live, I
Yeah.
mean, it's
Yeah.
live to tape. And I go, what the fuck do you want? And she goes, there's a light behind you that blew out, and we have to reshoot it. I said,
Oh. Oh my God.
from where I stopped you. She goes, no, it blew out as soon as you walked on stage.
Oh no.
So now I have to tell the audience, I have to say to the audience, listen, folks, this is what live television is. I said, you've already seen this for 5 minutes. You're going to have to laugh as if you've never seen the show material. And you know what? That was an amazing audience. It was full of my
They
friends
did?
and
Oh,
family.
cool.
Oh, they nailed it.
Oh,
When you
good,
see the
good.
third special, when you watch my set, you'd never know that we
That
had
it was
had an
done a
issue.
second time.
Yeah, they could not have been greater. But that was, and then we shot that in August, and we put it up in November. And then, the industry, right? So, okay, so we shot it, it aired like 3 years ago on the night before Thanksgiving.
Right.
That January in the trades, I don't remember what year this is. That January in the trades, I see a thing that says Paramount Plus is going to buy Showtime. And I
Okay.
called my partner. I said, that's it for Showtime. That's it for the guy who had championed us.
Yeah.
That's it for him. And my partner said, no, no, no. I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago. Everything's good. Well, by March, that guy was gone. They
Yeah.
don't do
Yeah.
comedy at Showtime anymore. So right now what we're doing is we're on hold at the moment,
Right.
but we are talking to other networks again about bringing more of a series. I want it to be more like, do you remember the old Evening at the Improvs?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, where there was like three comics and a
Yeah.
host.
Right.
That's what I want to do. I want to do Funny Women of a Certain Age, but do it as like a half an hour special as opposed
Okay.
because we were doing our specials were an hour, were about an hour, but everybody by the time we edited and did the interstitials, it was probably closer to 70 or 80 minutes. I want to do a half an hour. It would be great if it could be weekly,
Right.
because there's enough, we have enough talent with women that we could
Yeah.
do at least 3 seasons and just do it that way. And like everybody does, 7 or 8 minutes and then does it that way.
Right.
So that's what we're hoping for right now.
Well, and I want to, because you did tour and you've got one more date coming up this year, and I'm going to try
Yes.
and get this on the air. It's December something or other. You got one more, but I want to talk real quickly because both of these women were on the show, and they were your lineup changes as you go around the
Yes.
country.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
Vanessa Hollingshead was on, and she
Yes.
mentioned you and what a wonderful person you are, and you're such a good friend of hers. And then Missy Hall was on, and Missy Hall's a handful. My goodness, is she a handful?
No, but she's the
But
best.
I watched your videos, and I got to tell you how much I enjoyed them when you guys were together, whether it
Right.
was the ice cream or you driving the
Oh yeah.
car
Yeah.
or Vanessa's Prada shoes, and you got your
Yeah.
Skechers on. I just want
Yeah.
to tell you how much I enjoyed those.
Well, those were, I mean, that particular tour, we were in Michigan. I think we were in Michigan.
I think
And
so,
I mean,
yeah.
every tour, the ladies that I work with, we always have stuff like that happening. But for some reason, we did a lot more content when we were on tour with them. And the thing about the ice cream, which was a very popular video, that really described both of them.
Well,
Do you know what I mean? Like I'm like the mother hen, and I just kind of I
you
say it's like herding cats.
you don't know this, but my grandfather built the first Dairy Queen in Pennsylvania.
Oh wow! Did
I
you tell
started
Vanessa
working there when
that?
I was 12. And Missy
Okay.
Hall told me, you know what, you should just screw that whole Your Comedy Minute thing. Just say, hey, my dad or my grandfather built the first. And I know Vanessa, she told me a
Yes.
story when she was on about you and her, and you were talking real serious to her, and all she kept thinking about was the ice cream truck where they were going to be open.
Right. 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 We had
Yeah, they
done
have
a
it
show
bad.
together. We had done a show together. It was an outdoor show in Brooklyn during COVID, and I was telling her, okay, well, we have to leave to get because it was like one of those trains to Brooklyn.
Right.
And all she was looking at was the Dairy
Yeah.
Queen that was like right there. That's all she
Yeah.
cares about. That's
I think that's the only
she's
reason that they came on this show, that they think they might get some kind of discount.
yeah, I'm telling you, she is out of her mind when it comes to Dairy Queen.
I
Yeah.
know, I know. Um, I'm going to try and switch gears here. You have some advice about marriage.
Do I have some advice about marriage?
Well, I'm talking about one of the bits you do.
Marry for money?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, marry for money. You don't need the love. You can
yeah.
you can have the love, the third or fourth husband. I always say get the boat. Get the boat. That's
Get the
important.
boat.
Get the boat.
You know what I love about your comedy, Carol, is that you just bam, you are just man, you just nail them, you just kill them.
Oh, thank you. I mean, but remember, I've also been doing stand up
No, I know,
for
a long,
45
long time.
years. And for years, because the business has changed so much because of the internet
Yeah,
and social media. Because for years, all I did was I'd watch comics and then I'd write and I'd learn. And now it's a whole different ballgame. People are like, "Oh, I'll just post stuff on, and
yeah,
they have careers that way." And so it's, I mean, there are some comics that have become very successful because of that, and
yeah,
they're good. Are they great?
no,
Probably not. But I had the years of having to schlep from comedy club to try to get to work on my set. Though I think that's what makes the older comics a better comics
right. Well, and
because
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you performed for the troops in Iraq.
Mhm.
You performed in Vegas. For over 5 million people.
Yeah.
When I said comedy legend, I wasn't blowing hot air at you, but you are an absolute comedy legend.
Well, thank you. I don't think I am, but I appreciate
No,
that.
and I wish you nothing but the best because again, I watch other podcast, and whether it goes Showtime or where, I hope your show gets picked up because I know you said you wouldn't mind trying to do a sitcom.
Right. Well, we
You
have a
know,
lot to do with, I mean, the whole reason I came up with the idea was obviously, I wanted to work, but I'm one of those people who wants to help people. And
No.
I knew this was a way to put money into pockets because being a woman in comedy, even to this day, is just not easy,
No.
and we don't get the work as much as we used to, or at all, because you as a woman who's older, you've got the fact that, okay, I'm not getting enough work because I'm a woman, and then you add the fact that I'm an older woman.
Yeah.
The work is non-existent. So I feel really good that I have this little company that at least takes care of, it's a very small portion of women, but I do get to say, at least you're
Yeah.
getting something, you're being seen by other people.
Well, Nancy Levine was on, and she said, I'm not the flavor of the month anymore. And you also mentioned, and I don't want to, because I have my feelings about it too. Like I mentioned, I met Rodney Dangerfield. I had a
Oh,
conversation with George Carlin before he died.
yep.
I'm a comedy Henny Youngman, the old, I'm
Oh yeah.
62. I grew up on what was tried and true stand-up comics. And
Right.
I've had enough comics on here that the whole Instagram, TikTok, those comedians that come on, I just
Right.
had someone on the other day that said they're not, comedy doesn't matter anymore. It's about
Right.
putting butts in the seats. These
Well,
people can bring in
right.
lots of people,
Right.
and I've had several comedians on and say, we clean up. Yeah, they bring them in, they're not any good, and then we come out and do the show.
Right. But I will tell you this because it's not so comedy has changed, and
Oh
I'm
my
not
God,
supposed,
yeah.
okay. But as far as putting butts in the seats, that's always been what it was. That's
Was it
always,
okay?
I remember, you know, my husband's was when we were first dating, he was a musician, and
Right.
he used to play the same shitty clubs until the club owners went, wait a minute, we only have to pay one person instead of four people. I mean, how many comedy like I mean, how many comedy bars did I play? There was a disco ball that just stayed there from the 70s because whatever they can do to make money to
Yeah.
bring people in, because all we're doing in the end is
Is
selling drinks.
selling drinks. Yeah.
Selling drinks.
Yeah.
That's all this is. So I disagree with the fact that, when they say it's only about butts and seats, because it's not. It's always been about butts and seats. What's different now is the way people perceive who's somebody that they want to see. In
Okay.
the old days, people would say, "Oh, Carole Montgomery, I want to go see her because I know who she is." But
Right.
now I don't have a million views on TikTok.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, I occasionally dabble in the new
Yeah. You
social
do.
media when
You do
I'm
some.
posting.
Yeah. I watched some of
But
them.
and I have good friends that do it constantly, and I'm like, I don't have the bandwidth. I'm running a company.
Yeah.
The Funny Women of a Certain Age isn't just a little show.
No.
It's a brand. It's a major
Yeah.
brand.
Yeah.
We're looking to get a sponsorship, and work with other older women organizations. So I don't have time to be like, hey, look at me, I'm walking down the street. I do it every so often. But you know what I mean? I do it every so often, but I get a couple of thousand views, and it's, I remember talking to a young comic, and she's got a nice following. And I said, how many times a day do you post? And she says, I post 5 times a day. I said, you're out of your
Oh
mind.
my God.
But
Yeah. That's what
that's
you
the
got
new
to do.
norm.
Yeah.
That's the new norm. And now I've been in it long enough that when the first social media, now, this all started with MySpace. You remember
Right.
MySpace?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So MySpace was just this little goofy thing that
Right.
people were doing, and it was to connect people. That was the big deal. And then Dane Cook
I remember Dane Cook.
figured out the algorithm and blew up from that. So what happened? Because comics are not original when it comes to pushing themselves. Go, well, Dane Cook did it, so I'll do it. And that's what happened. And then Facebook happened, and then
Yeah.
TikTok happened. And
Yeah.
my partner Dave, he used to produce a show called Gotham Live.
I know
And
it.
we were talking one day, and he said to me, he goes, you're going to kill me. He goes, I said, what? He goes, the network wants me to put on The Situation. Do you remember him from the Jersey Shore?
Yeah.
I said, well, he's not a comic. He goes, yeah, but he has a million. He has a
Yeah.
million
Yeah. Yeah.
followers
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
it.
I get it.
And that's what they care about.
Yeah.
That's what they care about. They care about, are they going to bring people, yes, butts and seats always. But when they have a bigger Q rating or whatever it's called these
Yeah. No,
days.
I'm familiar with it. I wanted to
Yeah.
touch on just because, and things strike me, people say something, and you mentioned about funny women of a certain age as a business.
Hmm.
I worked in the music business my whole life, and I worked with one of my favorite bands, Cheap Trick.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I don't know if you know Rick and Bunny, and I've got to be
Oh,
friends
I
with
know who they are.
yeah, I'm friends with those guys. And I didn't realize until he did the accounting for the band
Right.
and what a business it is look, it's not just Rick, Robin, Tom, and Bunny. I got to
Right.
take care of the road crew. I got to take care of, there's
Oh, yeah.
150 people on staff. We have three
Right.
trucks all over the country, Scott, you know?
Right.
And it wasn't
Right.
until I did promotion for him I realized what a business it is.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
a circus.
It, but that's what people think, and especially if, you
Right.
know, my husband before the pandemic was like, you really need to get an assistant because your brain is just, I
Yeah.
don't have enough bandwidth, is what I like to say. But the problem is that I'm the only one that really knows
Yeah.
my business. So it's very hard to say to somebody, can you do this for me? Because they're going to do it, and then I'm going to go, oh no.
No, no. You're preaching to converted. Your comedy minute, Scotty T. I have one here. Who I want. I do what I want. If I don't
Right,
like it, it doesn't go on. And
right, right.
I've had someone here that have never seen the light of day and never will.
Yeah, well, I have one of those lists too.
I saw a video of your dog Peanut,
That's my baby, my little girl.
and I laughed so hard. Do you know what video I'm talking
The
about?
one the one that got more views
When you
than
reach
mine.
back to pet her.
Oh, when she was growling at me. She does, it's so funny. She's
Oh,
a
she
12.
loves me.
No, but
She
so
loves me. That shit is cracking
she
me
does
up,
that to
Carol.
me, but she does that to me all the time. She's a foster fail.
What a lover.
Yeah, and she was abandoned, and so she only does it with me. She'll
Yeah,
be
you
snuggled
said
up
your
to me.
husband, she loves your husband.
Oh, she loves him. She
Yeah.
never growls at him, but she always growls at me. And when she goes to bite me, I'll put my finger in her mouth and she goes, well, I don't want to bite you. I just want to growl at you. It's a strange little
Well,
dog,
and,
but
and there was even a discrepancy about Peanut's age.
yep. Yeah, they
Because
said
I
she was
know
eight.
your whole thing is ageism and sexism and
Right.
and so even Peanut.
Yep. Well, what was funny was actually Wendy Liebman has a great joke. Yeah, she actually did on her special because she had a similar thing where she adopted she had fostered a dog and
Right.
adopted it, and but it was in Beverly Hills, and it was the same thing with it that they said the dog was younger, and then her joke was is even dogs in Beverly Hills have to be age shamed or
Yeah.
something like that. I'm paraphrasing,
Yeah.
but it was a great joke. It's a great joke.
Yeah. Well, they told you what? They told you Peanut was 8 and it turns out Peanut was 12.
Yep.
Something like
Yep.
that.
Yep. Yeah. But she looks good for her age.
Ah, she looks fantastic,
She
like a
doesn't
million
have
damn
any
dollars.
Botox.
Like you. I know you got your hair done and did your makeup for me today, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I didn't. No, I didn't.
I
I'm
know
sorry.
you didn't. I'm just messing with you.
I
I'm trying
don't,
to steer you up. I
I
love
mean,
when you get angry. I love when you get
no,
angry.
nah, you know
Favorite,
what?
hey, let's move
Huh?
on. Go ahead. If you want to get angry, yell at me a little bit.
No, I'm
I
not going
like
to
it.
yell at, I'm not going to
I
yell at you.
like it when people yell at me.
I know that, but I'm just, it's been a very long few
Nancy
months.
Levin called me an asshole.
Who did it?
And Nancy Levine a few times. Favorite show that you've ever done and least
Favorite
favorite show?
show? You mean like
Meaning
live?
that you perform, not something you watch. Just before you start, Missy Hall said her favorite show of all time was you. She was on stage, must have been a show that you put together or something. And she was on stage and she was just killing it. And she looked over and saw you rooting her on. And she said that was her favorite show of all time that she's ever done.
Aw. Um, I would have to say all three specials
Okay.
were my favorite shows because, well, probably the first one. I mean, the second and third were very important too, but the first one, I shot it in Brooklyn. I'm from Brooklyn. I dedicate
Yeah.
all three specials are dedicated to my parents who passed away a long time ago.
Okay.
But the first one was when I walked out on that stage and just looked around and, I mean,
Yeah.
my friends were like, my friends were there.
Yeah.
Like the warm-up comics family was there because their family,
Right.
I saw my
Sure.
son and my husband and everything. So that to me probably was the most special because, it was the culmination of working my ass off for many years
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
everyone
Yeah.
thinks, oh, this happens. And I was like, no, I was, you know, I'm, I still work too much.
Yeah.
I worked my ass off to get this show up, and I'm
Yeah.
still working because I have to keep the brand out there. The only reason the show is still even viable now is because during the pandemic, my husband actually said, "You have to first of all keep writing
Yeah.
because eventually we're going to get out of this, and you're going to have new stuff. And second of all, you have to keep the name out there." So I would say probably the first special is probably my favorite show of all time because, like I said, I got to look at like when one of the things, it was this big deal. It was a big deal. We were taping my first TV special, and I was getting we taped it at the Bell House, and we didn't really have we were like in a broom closet. That's where we were doing our makeup, and I'm doing my makeup, and I say to my stage manager, I say, "Listen." I said, I can't go on my son's always late to everything. I said, I can't go on until I see my son. My son's a grown man, by the way. He's
Yeah.
32. He was probably 27 or 28 then. And I'm like halfway, I have half my makeup on, and she walks in, she goes, Lane's here. And I got up, I stopped what I was doing, and I got up to my son, and my son's really tall, and I just leaned on him, and he rubbed my back. And I just
That was
stood there and
enough.
I breathed for a few minutes because I knew what this was, especially for him, because he's seen his mom go. My career's been up and down. The last few years,
Sure.
knock on wood, has been really good. He was rubbing my back, and I took a breath and I went, all right, now get out of here. I got to go to work. But I needed to see him, and I needed
Yeah.
that was a very emotional moment for me because it was like he did. You have to understand, I was pregnant with my son when I was on the road. He was on the road with me when he was a baby.
Yeah.
When I moved to Vegas, he was 4. He saw me do the culmination of being in Vegas for 10 years. He saw me come back to New York and not have a pot to piss in and rebuild from that to be able to all of a sudden have a packed house and be filming it for a TV show. That's the moment that
Unbelievable.
I
Great
needed to
story,
be like,
Carol. Great
yeah,
story.
thank you.
And you have
Yeah,
my word, okay? Not that I can do anything, but believe me, as long as I'm doing this, you and any of your guests are welcome. I will do everything I can to help
thank you.
out funny women of a certain age. As I said, Vanessa's been on, Missy's been on, and I'm not secret about this. I am the opposite of the sexism. I love female comics. If I could have nothing but female comics on this show, I would do it. I've said
Yeah,
that all the time.
yeah,
Ruthie Ferreira, every comedian, female comedian that's been on, I said, send them to me. So
yeah,
please send them to me because
absolutely.
I think the opposite. I've never locked horns with a female comic. I have a lot of fun. Male
Hmm.
comics, it's pounding their chest. I've had some real asshole male comedians come on here, and I
Oh,
just
yeah.
didn't. Yeah. So
Well,
there
you know
you
what
go.
when it's very funny with the boys, and
Yeah.
I have a lot of good friends who are male comics, but every so often they'll be like, who are you? Like when I first came back, a lot of comics would watch
Yeah.
would see me walk in and smirk, and then I'd go on stage, and they were like, as
Yeah.
soon as I got on stage, then all of a sudden like, hey, can I get you a drink? Hey, can I? I'm like, fuck you. You should.
Fuck
It's
you.
because I'm an older
Fuck
woman.
you.
It's not because once you saw that I could do my job, and look,
Yeah.
people might think I'm boastful in the sense that,
No, no, no.
but you know what? I've been doing this a long time. I know I'm good. I know I'm
You're really
funny.
good. You're
You know,
fantastic.
but it's not, and I have off nights. There's going to be people that hate me. It's just what happens. But you can't be doing a career for 45 years and think that you're not good.
No,
Do
you're
you know what
good.
I
You're
mean?
good.
So,
Yeah.
but it is always very funny because, and of course I always I used to say this too. I said the reason some male comics don't like me is because my dick's bigger than theirs.
Hey, Carol, do you know why people hate me before they get to know me?
Why?
It saves time.
Thank
All right, look, I don't know if you can do it. I want to thank you so much for being here.
you. Thanks so
Again, you've
much.
got a Funny Women of a Certain Age coming up in December. We'll promote that. I'll put all your links to everything I can do to help you.
Thank you.
Um, and I don't know if you got the memo as far as the ending. Your comedy minute, any kind of story you want to make up, you can make it up. But do you have a little
Yeah,
something you can give me?
sure.
Okay, let me do a formal introduction real quick.
Okay.
Carole Montgomery, your comedy minute. Go ahead, my friend.
So this was early on. This was very early on in my career,
Okay.
and one thing about comics in general is male or female, we do have a camaraderie. There is a camaraderie amongst us. So I
Right.
was working some shitty club, just I don't remember where it was, some
Right.
bar. I think there were darts whizzing by me by the dot board, and this guy started with me, and I went back and I started go, I
Yeah,
always say
give
to
it to
people,
him.
please don't heckle me, I'll destroy you, but they
Right.
try. So this guy got pissed at me, and he got up from his chair and he started walking towards the stage. And all the comics and remember, this is early on, so there weren't a lot of females. Every single male comic in that room stood in front of the stage to protect me.
Wow.
Yeah. And they were like, no, no, not this time. Not
Yeah.
today, Satan. This isn't going to happen. I mean, so there is a camaraderie. I mean,
Yeah.
look, are comics a pains in the asses? Absolutely. But when
Absolutely.
you're first starting out, you're so we don't become comics because we're healthy.
No.
We don't become comics because we're mentally stable.
Yeah, no, I'm
So,
nuts.
until you can get used to the fact of
Right.
I've been on stage where I've actually thrown a joke where I've been killing it. I'm like, I'm bored. I'm going to see if I can bring the audience back. Like that's a little game I play with myself, and I'll throw
Okay.
something out. It just silences the crowd, and I'm like, all right, now I have to do some work.
Start back
But
up.
I know I can do that because of 45 years of doing stand-up.
Cool. Well, let
Yeah.
me stop the recording so we can spend a minute or two off the air. Carole Montgomery, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I hope you had a good
Anytime.
time. Did you
I
have a
did.
good time?
I had a great time.
All right,
Thank you.
wonderful. Let me stop the recording so we can talk for a minute off the air.